Excellent. Okay. So good evening, everyone. This is Sheriff Sanders with the Leadership DeKalb. I am the interim executive director, and I am thrilled to be here this evening for the Community Service Project Open House. We also have on the line or on the call our co-chairs for the Community Service Project, John Bialis and Derica Williams. All three of us are members of the class of 2017 for Leadership DeKalb. So we've known each other for a while, and I'm excited to be working with them again. Also on the call, we have Heather Gaylord, who is with Leadership DeKalb, and she is the Marketing Communications Coordinator. So she'll be monitoring the chat, helping with any questions that you may have, and is also recording this for others who can't be with us tonight. So John, I'd like to turn it over to you to go ahead and give a explanation of what exactly community services projects are.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for the introduction, Shara. And Derica, as my new co-chair, feel free to interrupt as you see fit, as I kind of run through the basics of our cornerstone of the Leadership DeKalb program. So I'm sure most of you are aware that Leadership DeKalb brings a lot of bright minds together for almost a year's worth of immersion into the community, where they learn about a lot of different things that go on, whether it be local government, the education system, the justice system, the healthcare system, so on and so forth. They spend a lot of time networking and learning kind of how things work in DeKalb County, and in a hope that they will go on armed with that knowledge and do great things as leaders themselves once they graduate from the program. One of the great aspects of the program itself is something that's existed since 2014. It's called our Community Service Projects. And Derek and I co-chair the committee that oversees those projects. The Community Service Project program has served more than 60 nonprofits to date, and it really helps kind of augment some of that immersion I talked about earlier in my remarks. It pairs members of the class with nonprofits like yourselves to work on a pre-designated project that the nonprofit brings to the table, whether that be some sort of marketing plan, whether that be some sort of solving a problem the organization may be having in terms of tapping into its membership and making the most of its footprint, so on and so forth. It really is a great way for Leadership DeKalb to not only give back to the community, but it's a great way for our class members that participate in the programs to think about how they can give back to the community beyond the participation that they engage in as part of the class and part of the project team that they would serve on if they were to work for your nonprofit. It also helps nonprofits. You essentially will get a product of some sort at the end of the class year that you don't pay for. It's completely, this is a service that we provide voluntarily. And, you know, often, as you'll hear later in the program from both liaisons that work with the class team members that are on the project teams, as well as some nonprofit representatives that have already participated in the program, those documents and the sorts of plans and such that are generated by the teams really do go on and become part of that organization for the rest of its existence. And in some cases, they serve as really great springboards for the organization to perhaps shift its focus or change some ways that it does things, and or just again tap into their presence and their footprint in the county in new and unique ways that they may not have thought of. It also really helps the leaders within the class learn about leadership, because the way that we pair the teams together, typically speaking, the teams range somewhere between 8 to 12 people, depending on any given year's class size. But we evaluate each and every class member on a very specific evaluation tool called a DISC profile. And those DISC profiles tell us who is, highly reliable, who is a problem solver, who is a very social person, who likes to organize things, all sorts of interesting psychographics about the class members. And we really try to get nice, diverse teams put together that you'll have at your disposal to really attack whatever issue you bring to the table from all sorts of different avenues leaving no stone unturned. And I think the nonprofit reps that'll talk a little bit later, I think they would agree. It really leads that kind of diversity of thinking and diversity of backgrounds really leads to a lot of robust final projects. And it really helps propel those teams forward because they're not just kind of approaching it from one, kind of unified way of thinking. In terms of the program itself, it does run pretty much from the beginning of the class year, which typically starts around mid-September, to the end of the class year, which typically goes through the beginning of June. They will check in with you as a nonprofit at the beginning of the program. We require that they meet the nonprofit organization face-to-face as a full team at least once prior to kind of getting started and hitting the ground running. And from that point forward, you'll receive updates periodically on a monthly basis about the progress the team is making. You'll be invited to participate possibly in conference calls or update calls as they see fit. And then finally, as the projects come to a culmination, you'll be invited to the closing retreat, which is, again, as I said, sometime usually around early June, to see them present what we call their capstone presentations, which are generally 20 to 25-minute presentations that sum up the issue that you brought to the table that they've worked on, the methods by which they went about trying to solve it, and then the final product and the final recommendations that they've made to you, the nonprofit, to propel your issue forward and to resolve, whatever it was you asked them to do. It's a really great class year. I personally participated on a project when I was a member of the class of 2017. I was so enamored with the way that, it opened doors for me to give back to DeKalb County and to really expose myself to the huge number of nonprofits that operate in just our county. I opted to voluntarily become a member of the CSP committee here at Leadership DeKalb, where I served as a liaison to a couple subsequent teams over a few years. And then I moved on to co-chair the program and have been in that role for, I think, the last 2.5 or 3 years. I get really confused because of COVID. I kind of forget how many years I've done this. I know this is, I think, the third virtual open house I've done. So it's been at least 3 years. In any event, that's kind of the high level synopsis of what the program is. Derek, I'm happy if I missed anything, please fill in any gaps.
No, John, you did a fantastic job, and that is an example of the quality of the work that you will get from Leadership DeKalb. I was going to briefly touch on and highlight what the year will look like as you work with the class, but John, that's how you kind of wrapped up what you just shared. I want to invite all of you, all of the nonprofits on the Zoom, to just know that Leadership DeKalb is, we are here for you. All of the leaders who are a member of the class. One of the highlights of the class is the CSP program, and the members of this class, they get excited about it. Our organization has a reputation of impacting nonprofits since 2014, and being chosen to be one of the nonprofits to be the recipient of the work that the class puts in throughout the year is a treat. I was a liaison. I've been a liaison since I graduated from the program. Sharon mentioned that John and I are we're members of the class of 2017. And one of the best decisions I made after graduating was becoming a liaison. And now serving as co-chair of this committee is just a feather in my cap. And John and I are here for you. If you've got questions, we will make sure you have our contact information. We will be in touch with you throughout the year as the class works with you on whatever your project is. Don't hesitate to let us know if anything is needed. We have a very open door policy when it comes to this to the CSP project program. And I am honored to work with all of you as the co-chair for the class of 2022.
Well, thank you very much, Derek. I know we also have some other liaisons who have worked, have been a liaison in the past, and we have some folks who are going to be helping out for the first time on the call. And so just wanted to reach out to a couple with some questions. Tamika, how long have you been a liaison, and what organizations have you worked with?
So I graduated Leadership DeKalb class of 2020, and this would be my third year serving as a liaison. Last year, Kathy was one of the members of the project that we were working on, and I'm having a brain fart, but the year previous to that, we did the Georgia Center for Deaf and Hard of Hearing. So I'm happy to see Mr. Jimmy Peterson back on the call. So yeah, I'm excited to serve again. This will be my third year serving as a liaison.
Fantastic. And I think, Marquita, you also have been a liaison in the past. What was your role, if you're able to speak about kind of your role as a liaison and kind of what you did in that role? If you're not able to join us or come off mute, I'll punt it over to Derek or John or Tamika or anybody else who would like to answer that question.
I just realized I was on mute. Marquita, this is her first year as a liaison. She is class of 2016. And we also have Damone with us, who is a member of the class of 2022. And so this is his first year as a liaison. And obviously they have experience as a member of a team, working with teams to provide the deliverable to the nonprofit. So, and I happen to have been Damone's liaison last year. So, so I am, I'm pretty excited that he has decided to become a liaison. But Damone, I would like for him to talk a little bit about his experience last year working not only with your classmates, but also with the nonprofit.
Sure. So the nonprofit we worked with last year was I Will Survive. So they were their mission was around supporting women and family members that have been impacted by breast cancer. So it was really it was eye-opening to see, you know, all of the different types of assistance they gave, because I haven't personally been involved with a nonprofit before. So that was really my first, or the closest I've gotten. So with that, you know, the team that we, that our project team, the CSP team, we had, it was a pretty diverse group from backgrounds and kind of like professions, you know, different strengths and weaknesses. The experience overall was first of all, it was a good experience. It was a lot of work. It definitely wasn't something that to be taken lightly. But as we got going and we kind of got a rhythm going with the, you know, the different reporting and who was doing what, everything seemed to flow somewhat smoothly. So I think it was a great experience, and I would you know, highly recommend it. I have been recommending it to others.
Thank you. Derek, John, Tamika, anyway, kind of want to talk about what a recipe is for kind of a good project or a challenging project, something that would engage the team and but also be helpful to the nonprofit organization.
Go ahead.
I can start on an answer to that question. I think two things that first jump to my mind. One is building a better volunteer database. A lot of the nonprofits that we typically work with on these CSP projects are smaller. In fact, we, as an organization, despite having to kind of truncate our acceptance process, let's say, because we just have, you know, the last few years we've had fewer and fewer nonprofits available because of the impact of COVID and the smaller class sizes. But typically speaking, we try to avoid larger nonprofits with larger budgets and bigger footprints. So most of them that we work with are challenged, with having either exposure, so marketing campaigns, and or solid volunteer base. And so those would be the two things that kind of spring to my mind.
Erica, did you want to add anything on?
Yeah, I think a recipe for a good project is having very diverse folks at the table to objectively look at whatever the project is that they are working on. When I was in the class, my project was, or the NPO was DeKalb CASA. And while I knew a little bit about them, my best friend was going through the adoption process, and she had a CASA assigned to her, and I met the lady, but I didn't really know that there was an official organization about it. There was an official organization that provided this person that helped my best friend through the adoption process. So my vantage point was a little bit different than the vantage point of my classmate who was an IT specialist. One of my classmates, they were a marketing guru, and the project centered around marketing for DeKalb CASA, and tapping into the resources, the experience, the wealth of knowledge that exists in the class is in my opinion, the ultimate recipe for having a good project. Being able to look at it with a set of eyes that maybe someone within your organization just hadn't thought about. And obviously there is no one way, but the way that that is presented to you at the closing retreat and throughout the year, because obviously, like John said earlier, there are check-ins, and we do ask the teams to just share their progress throughout the year, and so you will be very aware of where the team is, and if the team needs to. Here's a pandemic, a COVID word, pivot, as they are working on the project, then that's exactly what the team will do. The team is just open to suggestions and open to feedback from the nonprofit. So all of that collectively equates to a great recipe for a good project.
Well, thank you both or thank you all for that information and insight. For me, the CSPs, not only was it an enjoyable experience with our teammates and we're working with our liaisons and with our nonprofit organizations, but it was seeing becoming aware of other organizations that are out there in DeKalb County. There are hundreds of nonprofit organizations in DeKalb County, and sometimes the bigger folks get more press, but it's amazing to learn about the needs that are being met by these nonprofit organizations, and very grateful that they're meeting those needs. And so I'd like to just kind of pivot, taking that from you, Derica, over to two people who are on the call today, who are nonprofit organization representatives. And we have Jimmy Peterson, who's Executive Director of the Georgia Center of the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. And he was a CSP participant in the 2020-2021 year. And then we also have Mary Andress Overly of the Funeral Consumers Alliance of Georgia, and he participated in the class of 21-22, so just the most recent class. And so wanted to ask both of y'all a couple of questions to kind of get your thoughts on what it was like to be helped, I hope, by Leadership DeKalb. First, I guess, Jimmy, if you do not mind saying, what was the project you submitted to Leadership DeKalb, and did that project change once you began to get involved with the project team?
Yes. Um, well, first, I want to thank you for inviting me to be involved with all of you tonight and seeing the class of 2023 doing what we did in my time. Our strategy, our plan of development at SWOT and that group they were fabulous. They helped develop the SWOT, specifically what needed to be improved, what we could do. So that really helped me to have the board retreat. They worked on your proposal, and it really was fabulous. And I was thankful for the volunteers who gave their time and research and knowledge that helped us. And we did change some things based on your advice and recommendations.
Great, that is good to hear. And in case anyone's not familiar with the SWOT analysis, that happens a lot with nonprofits and other organizations, where the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So I'm glad that they were able to assist you with that, and that helps your organization. Mrs. Andrus Overly, would you mind answering the same question? What project you submitted to Leadership DeKalb, and did that kind of change and evolve as you worked with the team?
Certainly, Shara. First, I want to thank Leadership DeKalb again for selecting us as a partner for last year's class. We were probably one of the smallest of the small organizations. We are still fairly young and have a small board that still needs a lot of board development work. The project that we submitted was a request for help developing a strategic marketing and communications plan. We worked with our team, which took the name the Ray of Hope team, worked with them to develop that, to get acquainted with our work and to develop such a plan, and produced what we are going to spend a lot of time growing into as we move forward, but it got us moving. The plan provides a roadmap for the future work that we will do and shows us how to do a more effective job of developing partnerships, of growing our financial resources, and eventually becoming known to all of Georgians to fulfill our mission of educating Georgia's funeral consumers, and that's everybody in Georgia, to better understand their legal rights and their opportunities when it comes to planning for the final care of their remains after death. We continue to benefit from the new contacts that we made in this process, and it even has already brought us a referral to a connection with an excellent resource person with whom we are working to develop videos that can be used for social media marketing. And it has added directly to our small bank account to cover such expenses. We even got some money out of the project. Speaking of money, and that was just personal contribution dollars, not a Leadership DeKalb financial participation, but just to provide kind of a benchmark for comparison. In the summer of 2021, before or overlapping with the development and submission of our proposal to Leadership DeKalb, I had learned that a member of my own religious congregation happened to be a professional marketing consultant. And I had requested an informal meeting with her to talk about our work and get her ideas about how to market ourselves to the entire state. she came up with a formal proposal for me and an estimate that it would cost us in the neighborhood of $10,000 to implement the proposal that she shared with us. So I provide that just to help other people who are with us today and or who will watch this recording later of the value of the totally free services that a nonprofit organization can get from participating in the community service project program. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And we're glad that it is a gift that keeps on giving, that Leadership
Yes.
Gab can help out in that way. And it's not just, the deliverables, the marketing plan or the SWOT analysis that Leadership Gab provides. Is also, if you agree with me, that it is some of those contacts and referrals and awareness that help. And with not only vendors or resources, but also in the future, board members. You mentioned having a smaller board, and that is one service that Leadership DeKalb has provided and would like to continue to provide to nonprofit organizations, is that we are a great source of potential board members. We're trained volunteers, and we have a passion for service, and the community service projects help us do that. And Mr. Peterson, I was going to come back over to you just to see if you had any advice to give other nonprofits who may be interested in becoming or working with Leadership DeKalb on a community service project, whether or not you had any advice on kind of how to complete the application and go through the process with Leadership DeKalb.
So my advice for the leadership team is to volunteer. It should be on their time and get the support for the nonprofit organization. There's always issues with money and funding. So you want to look at the motivation and the help of many people for the nonprofit. We have a wonderful website, social media. We're looking at those things, and that can help our board members understand where we need to improve and what we need to improve, so that you have that expertise and experience, and that it could be really amazing, and it's been really great. Nothing could be better than that.
Thank you.
I do. Sure,
Yeah, go ahead, John.
I could say one two qualifying things to both what Mary said and Jimmy's feedback there, because I don't want anybody to misinterpret what the intentions or the parameters of the projects that we typically do are. I will say that we typically do not accept proposals for strictly 100% fundraising plans. We, are happy to build a marketing plan that maybe has a fundraising component to it, as if to say, hey, if you hold X event, this may generate some income. But we typically don't do hardcore CPA style fundraising scrubs. And that's for a lot of different reasons, mostly because we don't feel that that's something that we as an NPO ourselves should have untrained individuals making recommendations on. Second of all, we typically stay away from anything that would require legislative advocacy and or specific legislative outcomes, because that would require having team members registered as lobbyists and or have some sort of overriding interest in pushing a particular political agenda. Even though it may be policy oriented, it would still be viewed optically as a political program. So those are the two areas that we typically stay away from. Other than that, we do everything under the sun.
Thank you. And I don't know if there's any other questions that we could that we haven't covered. I'm looking through our list, and if there's anything we haven't covered, somebody please let me know, or if there's questions that we have that anybody would like to throw out there in the chat or taking themselves off mute, we are happy to answer those at this time.
Hi, this is Marquita. I apologize. I was having technical difficulties earlier. I just wanted to chime in. I am Leadership DeKalb Class 2016. And I was a part of a team. We called ourselves the Smooth Operators. And our nonprofit that we partner with actually was Side by Side Clubhouse. And they're located in Stone Mountain, Georgia. It's actually a community-based organization that helps support adults with brain injuries. And if not for my involvement with this program, I would just not know anything about that organization. And our project sort of revolved around increasing the visibility of Side by Side in the community. So we put together recommendations for them in terms of getting on NPR, and doing a community-based event to invite, community officials out to partner with the organization. What I would say is the one thing that, we kind of learned from the project, or I guess that the nonprofit leaders at Side by Side learn, is to be open. Their original goal was to just increase visibility within the community, but a byproduct of that was they actually were able to increase fundraising as a part of that. Which was very great for them. That was not their original intent, but certainly that is something that happened as a result of our recommendations, and they actually ended up implementing one of our recommendations. So we just enjoyed our time with that community organization, and I'm very excited to be a liaison this year.
Thank you. And I don't know, Carl or Kathy or Dorian, if y'all had anything else to contribute as your time as either a liaison or as a member of the Leadership DeKalb class that participated in a community service project, you're welcome to do so. I've been amazed at some of the creativity of some of the deliverables. Ours was kind of I'm an attorney by trade, and ours was kind of a boring paper, but I know other folks did amazing videos, and that nonprofit organizations were able to use on their websites, kind of discussing with shareholders and donors, and kind of documenting the impact that some of these nonprofit organizations had on the community and individuals. But yeah, Carl, Kathy, Dorian, anybody else on the call, if they'd like to give some thoughts, then I can wrap up with some important dates.
Nope. Thank you for the opportunity, but nothing from me to add.
Great. Thank you. John or Derica, I'm just going to kind of go through as we mentioned, the application deadline is August 31st, about 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, August 31st. We hope to have the selection announcements made on September 5th, and then have an orientation meeting with liaisons and the nonprofit organizations on September 12th. Our opening retreat for Leadership DeKalb is September 16th and 17th. And so that Saturday, the 17th, we hope that is our plan, is to have the teams from the class of 2023 put together and meet with their community service project liaisons. This information, the application, will be available on our Leadership DeKalb website. If not available, you can email us at info@leadershipdekab.org, and we will be able to send that out to you by email. John and Derica, anything else?
No, I want to welcome all of the NPOs, and we look forward to receiving your applications and working with you. This year, the class is ready. They're poised. They want to do this work. And John and I are also looking forward to interacting with you throughout the year as we work towards getting the deliverable that many of our liaisons have talked about, getting that ready for the closing retreat. We've had the privilege of seeing some very unique deliverables Shara just mentioned hers was a report, but we've seen everything from videos and PowerPoint presentations to songs to commercials, and I just think this experience is going to be one that is unmatched, and your organizations will forever be changed.
All right. Thank y'all. Have a good night.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.